I am Christian von Carmian, the YouTuber that Genestealer Cult players come to for Genestealer Cult information. This video is for beginners through to intermediate players. Experts will long have figured out the best way to use Cult Ambush, the Genestealer Cult army rule. I want to help everyone else get to that level, so I'll explain the rule, give some good rules of thumb, or rule of claw? We have thumbs. And then specifics on which units to bring back, how many times, and when to use the army rule. As I always say, let's do a learn. This is the current Resurgence Point table. Subject to change in 11th edition. It has already been subject to massive change throughout 10th edition. The March 2026 balance data slate was about the only one that didn't have any changes to Cult Ambush. Hence me waiting to do this video until after the balance patch. The number of Resurgence Points you get depends on the size of game you're playing. If you're playing a 1000 point game, which is incursion size, it's 6 points. If it's a 2000 point game, it's 10 points. If you're playing 3000 points, which is its own thing, and so I rarely play that to know how best to understand it, but that gives you 14 Resurgence Points. Nothing is listed for sizes like 1500 points, but that is a Strike Force size game, so you get 10 Resurgence Points. Even though you could very easily and fairly have 8 Resurgence Points, and that would match the size halfway between 1000 points and 2000 points. That's up to you how you want to play 1500 points. The way where you understand numbers, or the strict way of the rules where you get 10 Resurgence Points. Most people would pick the higher number. We will have advice for all of the different units you can bring back, which works for any size of game, but it matters most for 1000 point and 2000 point games because one unit could be half your Resurgence Points. When a unit is a significant number of points, that is usually a bad choice to return. There is a cheat in the Xenocreed congregation. The Deeds That Speak to the Masses enhancement gives you 2 more Resurgence Points. It's a 25 point enhancement to bring back an 85 point unit. Well, it's 25 points plus the 50 point character, but the character does other things. When this was about rerolls and battle line units, the words written in the codex that don't apply anymore, I tried the previous version of this enhancement lots of times and it wasn't worth it. But now, if you play Xenocreed Congregation, try and find space for this enhancement. There is no caveats, there is no asterisks, you don't lose the 2 Resurgence Points if the character dies, you are not limited to which units you can bring back, like only Acolytes or only Metamorphs. It's whatever you want. You have 2 more Resurgence Points, which is a big increase in Resurgence Points proportional for a 1000 point game. Definitely have it in that size game, but also generally. So that's the number of Resurgence Points you get, and I showed off briefly the number of Resurgence Points each unit costs. We'll be going through the best choices a bit later. This is the current Cult Ambush rule, and you no longer roll randomly, which is something you may have heard or remember from near the start of 10th edition, or the middle of 10th edition, or some point in 10th edition before it all changed. Finally, we have a good version of the army rule, and it isn't random whether it happens or not. Being able to bring back units is great. We can charge an enemy and kill them, but they fight on death and kill us. Your opponent may think, good trade, but then they look back at the board and see a new, identical unit is in the same place. Not a good trade. They lost a unit and spent command points on a stratagem, we just used our army rule. So Cult Ambush is a special kind of reserves. It's basically strategic reserves, and like strategic reserves, you can deep strike out of it if you have the deep strike rule, which all of our infantry do. But you can't use rapid ingress. Instead, you can arrive on your opponent's turn on a Cult Ambush marker. It's like rapid ingress, but with a limited area of arrival, and it doesn't cost you any command points. You place a Cult Ambush marker when you spend Resurgence Points to put a copy of a destroyed unit into Cult Ambush. Any unit in Cult Ambush can come from that marker, not just the unit you placed in Cult Ambush at the time the token was set up. As soon as one of your units is destroyed, you decide then and there if you will spend Resurgence Points to bring them back and put them in Cult Ambush. If you don't do this, then the unit is destroyed and their identical twins do not exist. They will not arrive for the fight. For this reason, you don't want to be thinking of it and figuring out on the fly what you bring back. If one unit of 10 Neophytes is destroyed, and you're pretty sure that your unit of Jackal bikers will survive the same fight phase, but they might not, you don't want to be calculating if you let the Neophytes disappear and save the Resurgence Points for the Jackal bikers, or if you use the points on the Neophytes to have a unit in Cult Ambush regardless of what happened to the Jackal bikers. We're gonna have a plan. The unit in Cult Ambush is a copy of the destroyed unit, same equipment. Any one-shot weapons like the demolition charges are not fired because this is a brand new unit. They come with their own equipment, fully loaded. If you are doing Crusade to do some kind of map-based campaign, it's doing it in a galactic conquest mode. Sorry, I mean...
In Galactic Conquest, you battle your enemy one planet at a time for total control of the galaxy.
But in Crusade, this is not the same unit as the one that was destroyed. It is an extra and basic unit added temporarily to your army. It doesn't have any of the traits or scars of the destroyed unit. If it kills anything or completes a mission that gives experience points, the OG unit doesn't get any XP for that. You may want to keep that in mind before having a unit that returned by Cult Ambush throw the super important game-winning lever. That might give you experience points that would end up being wasted, because that additional unit is not going to be added to your roster. Whatever they do in the game disappears. For this reason, Genestealer Cult armies are slower to level up. It's lots of rolling out of action tests, not a lot of gaining experience points. And for this reason, most of my units in Crusade get about 1 upgrade. Getting 2 is rare. Because Cult Ambush is used immediately, you might end up with fun situations where you move in your movement phase and the enemy destroys your unit with Overwatch. And then you immediately spend Resurgence Points to bring the unit back in pretty much the same place, or perhaps closer, because you can deep strike at the end of your movement phase from Cult Ambush. That includes on turn 1. I'll explain why in a minute. So, you want to know before the game starts what you'll be using your Resurgence Points on. Pre-plan that like you pre-plan your meals for that week. And just as a note, as it keeps coming up in my FAQs, as in the comments and questions left for me, you can bring back the same unit multiple times. Like, it's destroyed, you put a copy in Cult Ambush, the copy is destroyed, you put a copy of the copy in Cult Ambush. That's fine. Another point, these units in Cult Ambush are not destroyed at the end of round 3 if they are in Cult Ambush. They did not start the game in reserves. Having your reserves destroyed only applies to units that start the game in reserves. You could lose a unit in turn 1, spend Resurgence Points to put that unit into Cult Ambush, and leave it there until turn 5. That is not a bad idea, especially if you go second, because then you score at the end of your turn. You could have a unit that was on the table on an objective move away to take another objective, and bring in a unit from Cult Ambush to hold that point that they left. Have them burn it if it's a Scorched Earth mission. These are great ideas. First thing to think of with Cult Ambush. The purpose of bringing back units is to score primary and secondary missions. That is almost always how I think of it. Not everyone does, but that is what I find best. When a unit is returned, they have no characters. You will notice that the characters don't have the Cult Ambush rule. They are not returned with the unit. So there's no Primus for +1 to hit. There's no Biophagus for a unit of Metamorphs to get the Bioscientific Brood Surge detachment bonus. There's no rerolls to charge in Xenocreed. Whatever enhancements you have, they're not going to affect the unit anymore because the character that had them is gone. So the combos that we use to cause damage will not be available. What we have is infantry that can deep strike. So drop in, complete secondary missions, land in your opponent's deployment zone to score behind enemy lines, land on empty objectives to score primary missions in the next turn, while the contingent of your army that was there from the start and is still alive fights and kills the enemy. Second point to follow on, some units are too expensive. The 20 Neophytes, the 10 Purestrains, the 10 Jackal Bikers, 10 Aberrants. That is most of your Resurgence Points. And if they cost 6 Resurgence Points in a 1000 point game, that is all your Resurgence Points. Alternatively, you can have 3 lots of a unit of 5. Units like 5 Acolytes, 5 Metamorphs, 5 Jackal Bikers, 5 Purestrains. Or you can have 1 unit. But using 3 lots of small units to score victory points will win you the game. 1 big unit rarely does that well. Third general point to remember, don't calculate Resurgence Points based in terms of the unit points compared to the Resurgence Points. Metamorphs are not better compared to Acolytes with autopistols just because the Metamorphs are more army construction points, but both cost 2 Resurgence Points for a squad of 5. If your plan is to drop a unit onto an objective and hold it for the next few turns, Acolytes with autopistols and the mining tools are better because they could generate you command points from that objective. If your plan is to drop another unit in to burn the lightest armoured troops, Acolytes with hand flamers do it better than Metamorphs. Acolytes with hand flamers or Metamorphs with hand flamers can have 5 hand flamers or 4 hand flamers and a cult icon, but the Acolytes always get to reroll wound rolls of 1 or reroll all wounds against enemies on objectives. What you need to bring back is dependent on your opponent and dependent on what you need at the time. So we want to plan at the start of the game which units we are probably, almost certainly, going to bring back. So let's go through the different choices. Aberrants. Oh, playing Biosignetic Brood Surge, are we? If not, I wouldn't bring back the Aberrants, as they are a bit slow. I'm not saying they're terrible to bring back, but other units may be better. In the Biosignetic Brood Surge, you get the bonus to charge, you get the detachment rule, you get the stratagems, and you can have a 7-inch or lower charge, or equivalent, because you're getting +2 to the charge from Deep Strike. You can return from Cult Ambush by Deep Strike. You get +1 to the charge from the detachment rule. You can have at least an extra +1 to the charge from Stimulated Biosurge. They can get back to the fight quickly, but in any other detachment, these were probably a unit that your opponent struggled to kill. They have a Feel No Pain, Toughness 6, 3 wounds. That's hard to crush, and then the exhausted look on your opponent's face when you tell them that they have to do it again can send some opponents scrambling for resources to do so. Aberrants are very good at holding up powerful enemy units. Not many factions or detachments have a fallback and charge to go off elsewhere. If you charge a big unit of Templar Crusaders or World Eaters or the equivalent of our Acolytes, Metamorphs or Purestrains, something that could blend through our light infantry but can't do much to Aberrants, that can win the game, as you are off scoring and fighting with your other units while the enemy is in a slap fight against cultists outside their weight class. A unit of 5 can be very good, mainly in the Biosignetic Brood Surge. It is 4 Resurgence Points for a squad of 5, or you can have 2 lots of like Acolytes or Purestrains. Do you need Aberrants? That's what you have to figure out. While 8 Resurgence Points for a unit of 10 is a lot. Unless you're playing the Xenocrete Congregation, you can't do that in 1000 points. And if you are, there's no real reason to bring Aberrants back over Acolytes or Metamorphs or Neophytes that will get some help from the detachment rule and stratagems. 8 Resurgence Points in a 2000 point game is all but 2 of your Resurgence Points. I wouldn't bring back a big squad of 10. Acolytes with mining tools are good disposable troops. You can throw them away, you can charge a tank on an objective. That isn't just about using their mining tools for damage, which are anti-vehicle and damage 3, it's about having more objective control than the tank, which is unlikely to kill them all. It's an easy way to deny the enemy victory points. In the Xenocrete Congregation, if you have the unit die and then come back, with the Tireless Fervor stratagem, you can reroll the charge roll if a character is in combat with the enemy you want to charge. So you can move and advance, use this stratagem, and you still get to reroll the charge roll, even though you don't have a character in the unit, which is what the detachment rule gives you. Rerolls if you have a character in the unit. The stratagem gives you that reroll, plus advance and charge. So if you return by a cult ambush marker in your opponent's turn, then in your turn, move, advance, and charge. That's good. That can get you right back into the fight. In the final day, there's the Divine Imperative stratagem. So you could have Acolytes that are destroyed. They deep strike in your turn near to an enemy unit, 9 inches away. That enemy unit is charged by a Tyrannid unit from your army. And with Divine Imperative, your deep striking unit now gets +1 to the charge. So you're looking at rolling an 8 on the charge roll. And you get a built-in reroll for that. And if you complete the charge, then your Acolytes will get +1 to hit in the coming combat phase because of the Catalyst detachment rule. I think it's worth bringing back a unit of 10 to have another unit that can finish off damaged tanks or heavy infantry. Toughness 5 units, units that have 3 wounds. Both of those traits apply to Terminators. Great. How many points are Terminators? 200 points? These Acolytes cost 0 points. Except also 4 Resurgence Points. If they were a squad of 5 and mining an objective for command points and they got blown up by artillery fire, drop a new unit in the same place to continue the mining operation. You know, in video games where the AI will send waves of NPCs to hit a wall and you can easily stop them to win, but the enemy is also distracting you with something else? This unit could be the distraction, or they could be the disposable NPCs doing the thing that makes the main characters lose. We are playing the villains. or with a heroic resistance rising up and fighting off oppressive rulers. It's entirely about perspective. Acolytes with Handflamers cost 2 Resurgence Points for a squad of 5, or 4 Resurgence Points for a squad of 10. A unit of 5 is perfect to complete missions. They can fit into a small area, they can complete actions. They're a good unit to have in your army generally. And when they're killed, if they died in the enemy turn 2, and at the start of your turn 3, you have no secondary missions that are actions, nothing that needs you to drop a unit into your opponent's deployment zone, keep them in Cult Ambush until turn 4 or turn 5 when you need them. You don't have to bring them back in turn 3. Because that rule that's in like the 2025 to 2026 mission deck that reserves are destroyed if not deployed at the end of Battle Round 3 only applies to units that start the game in reserves. It does not apply to units that are added to reserves or moved into reserves. They are safe until you need them again. The Handflamers are very good at killing light enemy infantry, things like Chaos Cultists, that may sit on the enemy home objective. So you would drop in, attack them with Handflamers. If you failed to kill them and your unit was destroyed, have another go. From Cult Ambush, Deep Strike, shoot again. Great, it worked this time. That's all we need. There's not a bad option in the Host of Ascension to use the Tunnel Crawler stratagem, which you can do from Cult Ambush. And then you can Deep Strike 6 inches away and use your Demo Charge Bombs again. You will still have the detachment rule of ignore cover and sustained hits, but you won't get any character support because characters don't come back. The Host of Ascension is the main place, or maybe only place, that I recommend having demolition charges in this unit. And even then, they are optional. What you could do is come back from a Cult Ambush marker, and then move, even advance, and throw the demolition charges. But then you can't use the Handflamers or charge if you advanced. Only the demolition charges have assault. You're hitting on a 5, but you get ignore cover and sustained hits, and if you're throwing bombs at an enemy on an objective marker, you also get full rerolls to wound. Resurgence Points to get a whole new unit of Acolytes with Handflamers and Demo Charges is the only way to get the Demo Charges back. Using the Cult icon in the unit does not return the Demo Charges. They have still used their one-shot weapons. It's like the same guy getting back up. Metamorphs are a 2 Resurgence Point unit for 5 or 4 Resurgence Points for 10. They're a decent small unit to bring back, and if you're playing against Space Marines of some sort with 2 wounds and toughness 4 that the Metamorph strike profile of strength 5 and damage 2 loves to hit, then you return a unit of 10. Metamorphs can have Handflamers or they can have autopistols. The problem with Handflamers is you want to be in combat, and shooting with Handflamers after coming from Deep Strike can kill some enemies that will only make your charge harder. If you want to use Handflamers, I suggest using Handflamer Acolytes. If you want to charge, and you do with Metamorphs, Handflamers may not be what you wanted. If you wanted to kill hordes, and you have Metamorphs available to bring back, sure. Bring them back and use their sweep profile. But in practice, my Purestrains have already died and I brought them back because they are better at killing hordes. If you need to clear 20 Termagants or an Imperial Guard platoon, throw in Genestealers that hit on a 2+ and who are AP-2 without needing Ridge Runner support. This is the exact armor penetration you need to get through a 5+ save. I rarely brought back Metamorphs. Usually I want Acolytes with mining tools, Acolytes with Handflamers, or Purestrains, and if I'm completing missions, small units of 5 work better, and I continually field Metamorphs in units of 10. That's the main reason why the Metamorphs don't get brought back, because I use them in squads of 10, where they cost 4 Resurgence Points to return. Jackal Bikers are 2 Resurgence Points for a unit of 5, or 6 Resurgence Points for a unit of 10. Once the Jackal Bikers dropped to 2 Resurgence Points for a unit of 5, every Genestealer Cult player woke up and thought they should take bikes in their army. They're tough like the Purestrains, they have more wounds because of the Wolf Quad, and they have stealth instead of an invulnerable save. It's still 2 wounds, but I prefer Purestrains. In the Outlander Claw, certainly you will want the Bikers back. You have to come in from a board edge as they have to return through strategic reserves on a Cult Ambush marker near the board edge, or using a Cult Ambush marker near the board edge. Then you can set up 9 inches from the board edge instead of 6 inches, and if you can do that in your opponent's turn, and touch an objective marker on the side of the map, you could use Rapid Takeover, the detachment rule of the Outlander Claw, get a hold of that objective at the start of your turn before you move off. The problem is that this is not Deep Strike, and any Deep Striking unit could land on the objective, which is faster than waiting another player turn to use a Cult Ambush marker. Despite their fast speed, they can be the slowest unit to get them where you want. And if you are playing on terrain that's laid out in the UK tournament scene style, you have massive sightlines along the edge of the map, and any enemy unit along there can see you and shoot your bikes when you return. Then you'll be relying on stealth and your 4-wound wolf quad to absorb damage. A unit of 10 is generally not what I advise taking in your army list. It's a lot of points, and the maximum number of mortal wounds you can cause from the demolition run is 6. If you're a unit of 5, you will never worry about reaching the cap. So have 2 units of 5. A unit of 10 and good rolls might cause 7 mortal wounds. Well, it drops down to 6. But 2 lots of 5 would have caused the 7 mortal wounds between them. At 6 resurgence points to bring back, and with all the problems of a 5-man unit, but that is all your resurgence points in a 1,000 point game, or more than half of them in a 2,000 point game, I wouldn't take them. And if you did, I wouldn't spend resurgence points to return 10 Jackal bikers. If you were taught counting and multiplication at school, you know that 6 resurgence points for 10 bikers is not as many as 3 lots of 2 resurgence points for 15 bikers. Smaller units are better. If you want to cause mortal wounds, like the enemy has lots of tough units like tanks, return the bikes. Otherwise, stick to units that can deep strike and score victory points, like the Acolytes. Neophytes are 3 resurgence points for a unit of 10, or 6 resurgence points for a unit of 20. 3 points is a difficult number. Unless you're bringing back 2 units of 10, or the same unit of Neophytes twice, as an odd number of resurgence points, you will be left with a spare resurgence point, and nothing is 1 resurgent point. So they're a bad choice. It's basically 4 resurgence points for 10 Neophytes. So why would you bring them back? They're kind of hard to kill from Overwatch, but so are Purestrains. Same number of wounds, but with an invulnerable save, and the Purestrains fit into a smaller space when deep striking. You could return Neophytes for a planned generations in the making. That's a way of stickying an objective so it remains yours. And if you and your opponent are almost entirely wiped out, dropping this unit in to take an objective and then rush to another one in your next turn is the plan. But you can't quite plan for that happening, and we'll probably only have 2 resurgence points left if we are near the end of the game. We want to plan which units to use before the game ever starts, so it is a reflex. The unit dies and you know if you will spend points on them or not. For Neophytes, I would say not. Purestrain Genestealers are great to bring back if they're a squad of 5. Like the bikes, it's 2 resurgence points for a squad of 5 or 6 resurgence points for a squad of 10. They can survive Overwatch better than the 1-wound Acolytes or Metamorphs. They have an invulnerable save, so they have protection against armor penetration -2 attacks that Acolytes or Metamorphs would not. They can turn up, they can complete actions, they can do secondary missions, they can sit on objectives quite happily. They can claw up small enemy units, the equivalent of 10 Neophytes, like Fire Warriors, Imperial Guard Cadians, any Imperial Agent support unit. For a small or a large squad, they're great to bring back using the cult ambush markers instead of deep strike, because they can advance and charge. It's a 9-inch charge if you come from deep strike, but if you move and advance and then charge, and from being like 16 inches away on a cult ambush marker, you will have to roll a 7-inch charge at most. More likely a 4 or 5-inch charge. It's good to get back into the fight. But when a unit of 10 with no Patriarch is 6 resurgence points, and 5 Purestrains are 2 resurgence points, the numbers are speaking to you and saying, don't bring back a big squad. But a small squad to clear away small enemy units is valuable. Get them Sisters of Silence, those Battle Sisters, those Chaos Cultists that have sticky objectives. We want to forward plan how we're using our resurgence points. So when it comes to making an army list, figure out with that army list which units you're going to bring back. So from the 1000 point army list from my recent Host of Ascension video, there it is, and I would bring back 5 Purestrains, 5 Purestrains, and 5 Acolytes with Handflamers. That is my 6 resurgence points. It could instead be a unit of Purestrains, the same unit of Purestrains, and the other unit of Purestrains. Since the Purestrains are likely to die first, and early, and I still want more units to arrive on the board, and have more units covering other units, scoring victory points while we're fighting, because them Purestrains die first, those are the ones I'm going to bring back so I keep a steady stream of troops, and a massive wave of troops in turn 2 and turn 3. For the 2000 point army list, I could see partway through whether I'm going to need more attacking troops, or if I can just continue to score points. Again, the Purestrains and the Purestrains would be the first 2 units I bring back. That spends 4 of my 10 Resurgence Points. Then if there's a problematic tank, I could bring back the 10 Acolytes with autopistols and mining tools. The ideal situation would be they died in my turn. I could bring them back on a cult ambush market in my opponent's turn and get them back into the fight in my next turn. I could do the same with the 10 Metamorphs. Either way, that would cost me 4 Resurgence Points. I still have 2 left, so I could bring back the Jackal Bikers if I needed more mortal wounds. And it doesn't matter when they died, whether they were the 2nd unit to die or like the 10th unit to die, I can save points for them. Or, if I didn't need to do that, I can return even more Purestrains, or 5 Acolytes with Handflamers, or 5 Acolytes with autopistols. I like my initial units to cause damage and then follow up with more of the small units to continually score points while whittling down my opponent's ability to score victory points. And in the Host of Ascension, when I come back from Cult Ambush, I will have Ignore Cover and Sustained Hits until the end of my next fight phase. My fight phase. Not just any fight phase, my fight phase. In the Xenocreed Congregation, it's very similar, but I like to bring back my opponent's weakness. If they don't like Damage 3 or Anti-Vehicle, I bring back Mining Tool Acolytes. If there are lots of Space Marine bodies, Metamorphs. So if I have 8 Resurgence Points at 1000 points, with Deeds that Speak to the Masses, it's 4 points for 1 unit of 10 Cultists, and 2 lots of 2 Resurgence Points on a unit of 5 Purestrains or 5 Acolytes, with Handflamers or Mining Tools, either one, whichever dies first. They go into Cult Ambush, I deploy them when I need them. This is one of the times I may not be bringing back the best units to score victory points, but the best units to keep holding back the enemy. And killing them ideally. In the Biosanctic Broodsurge, it's still the small units. I play Biosanctic Broodsurge with loads of Purestrains. I love them more than Aberrants, but I won't return a big unit of 10 Purestrains. In my army list, I have 2 lots of 5 Purestrains and 1 unit of 10 Purestrains with a Patriarch, or 2 lots of 10 Purestrains and 1 lot of 5 Purestrains. I return the 5-man unit, maybe twice over. They die, I return them. They die again, I return them again. Bring back lots of small units to score and complete missions while the enemy is fighting in their deployment zone against Aberrants, Abominants, and the bigger squads of Purestrains. If you're playing the final day, say it's 2000 points, I return 10 Mining Tool Acolytes because I want to keep doing damage. I can use Divine Imperative to get back into the fight quicker than in other detachments. And I'll also bring back 3 lots of 5 Acolytes or Purestrains. That's my 10 Resurgence Points. You need to especially plan how you're going to spend your Resurgence Points in Final Day, because a lot of your army is going to be Tyranids, and Tyranids don't return. You may end up bringing the same unit back over and over, and that is fine. It's similar in the Brood Brothers Auxilia, but the tanks are not there to support us, the tanks are the main event. I don't care much about the detachment rule. And because a lot of points is going into Imperial Guard tanks, I use the Genestealer Cult to score victory points while the Brood Brothers cannons go boom. There is one stratagem to get a Brood Brothers Imperial Guard unit into Cult Ambush, but using that doesn't cost you Resurgence Points. In the Outlander Claw, I bring back a couple of bike units, but still the smaller units of 5 bikes that can complete missions, have sticky objectives in that detachment, and can cause damage. With 6 Resurgence Points, it's like 1 unit of 5 bikers to cause damage, and 2 lots of 5 Acolytes. Sometimes I have Purestrains in the list, but because bikes can scout a long way, they can do the job of Purestrains in that detachment. That job being start in the middle of the board to slow down the enemy, and if I go first, damage and block the enemy in their deployment zone. Bikes do it by scouting really far, Purestrains do it by infiltrating. So the basic thinking is 1000 points, that's 3 lots of 2 Resurgence Points for 3 lots of 5 models getting brought back. At 2000 points, it's 5 lots of 2 Resurgence Points, so 5 units of 5 models, focusing on the 2 Resurgence Point units, or maybe 1 unit that's 4 Resurgence Points, and 3 lots of units that are 2 Resurgence Points. That is your absolute rule of thumb. I don't know what I'm doing, so I'll listen to what I was told on the internet. No matter what units you're using in the army, plan out your Resurgence Points, and if you want to know more about how to use every unit, whether they're meant to be good or not, I have a video explaining every single Genestealer Cult unit and how to get the most from them. My darlings and viewers, have a great day of 40k.